What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It has been a little over a week since I've talked to you guys. I've been very busy. You know, this YouTube thing is something that I hope to make my main thing one time, but I'm just like everybody else. I have to work a regular job, and last week I was out in Las Vegas for a trade show, doing a little bit of work, and we had a fantastic time, but I was so sad that I wasn't able to keep up with some of the fights for one championship for the UFC. But this week, I've got a video for you guys. One Friday Night Fights 34 took place last night, and if you have Amazon Prime or Stream East, you're lucky enough to see it. So I want to get straight into this, and I want to talk about it. For those of you that follow the channel and subscribe, you know one thing. I'm going to try to put timestamps in here, so if you're more curious about my thoughts or my takes on a particular fight, feel free to skip forward, feel free to skip back. Let's get into it. First on the card was a Muay Thai fight, Shamil Adukov versus Ellis Barbosa. Now, if you know anything about Ellis Barbosa, he is a little bit shorter for the class, for the weight class. There are some guys that are taller than him, but he's always the aggressor. He's always the guy that's moving forward, and it was the same thing in this fight. Now, Barbosa did get knocked down very early in the fight. In the first round, spinning back elbow, put him down, but he was able to climb through the adversity, continue to build and start landing good strikes, landing leg kicks. And in the third round, he was able to drop Shamil Adukov, and it seemed as if Shamil Adukov was kind of sitting down, questioning whether he was even going to get up. Didn't look like he was super hurt. I don't know if he was tired, if he got, you know, what happened. There was an injury or what, but he ended up making the 10 count. He got up at 9, and he got put away right after that. So, wonderful way to open up the night with a TKO. Fantastic performance for Barbosa. I do believe that Chatri did give him the bonus as well. Moving up on the card to Sui Kim versus Zafer Sai. Now, this was an interesting one. Thailand versus Turkey. There's going to be a trend that we're going to go over, and it's a trend of questionable decisions. Here's the thing, though, in combat sports, if you leave it up to the judges, there's a chance that you might go home disappointed, and I think this was the beginning of that in this card. In the first round, it was all one-way traffic from Zafer Sai, the guy from Turkey. I mean, he was landing his jab whenever he wanted to. It just seemed like Sui Kim was starting slow. He didn't really get going until the second, and he did start getting a little busy in the second. I'm not sure if there were any knockdowns. Zafer kept throwing his kicks really high, getting hung up and tripping. I don't think there were any official knockdowns for him at all. But I had Sui Kim winning the second round, Zafer Sai winning the first, and then the third round, Sui Kim's face is all busted up. I mean, I think his right eye, maybe it was his left, one of his eyes was totally swollen shut. And then you look at Zafer Sai, and there's not really a lot going on there as far as damage. I mean, Zafer put it on him. He really did. And in the third round, I also had him winning the fight. Now, in the last minute, Sai did start weathering a bit, I guess you could say. He was tired, and Sui Kim started having a little more success, and one could say that he stole the round. I don't know. I had Zafer Sai winning this fight. The judges gave it to Sui Kim in a unanimous decision. If you see me looking over here, I'm looking at my computer trying to pronounce these names. I want to get them as close as possible. Moving up the card to the first MMA fight in a heavyweight bash. Kang versus Ryugo Teuchi. South Korea versus Japan. Let's get into this one. I thought this was maybe a pretty dangerous fight for Takeuchi to take on so early in his career. Remember, he's only 22 years old. And Kang is 29, and he's already fought the likes of Tynan, which we saw on the card last night. He's fought Marcus Almeida, who's now in the UFC. So I was curious to see how this would pan out. And boy, was I wrong. Oh my God. In the first round, about halfway through the first round, Takeuchi storms across, almost halfway across the ring with a Superman punch. Misses the Superman punch, but has so much momentum and has G1 on the back foot that he starts throwing big hooks. And they're landing. He's so athletic, Takeuchi. And, he must have thrown a combination of like 8 to 12 hooks. And I'd say about 50% of those landed. He ends up dropping G1 and then getting on top of him, landing the hammer fist, the ground and pound, getting him up out of there, and won the $50,000. So I guess they try to one up or like kind of be on the same page as the UFC with the bonuses. You know, I don't know what these guys are getting paid, like as far as their salary, but I tell you what, $50,000 to knock somebody out, that sounds like a good payday to me. Moving up the card to Jeremy Pakatu versus Elbek Alashov. Now, you know, with the last name like that, you probably know what Alashov is going to be good at. You know where his strong suit is going to be. It's wrestling. He's from Russia. I think he had the one of these Russian guys came out last night with it. This guy came out and implemented his wrestling off the bat. I mean, this guy looked like kind of like an Armin Sarukian type, and just completely smothered Pakatu. And he was able to find a submission in the second round. Let's look over. So this was his debut. Big debut. He's only 26 years old. He's 5'5". That's interesting. I thought he was a little taller than that, but it doesn't matter. At this 148-pound division, 150, they need good wrestlers, right? And guys that can wrestle, like this guy can, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not competing for a number one contender shot or a belt in the next 2 years or so. Moving on up the card to another clash of heavyweights, Tynan, who we talked about earlier, versus Carill Shenko. Both of these guys are wrestlers. I think that Tynan has more of the wrestling base, like he leans upon that and depends on that more. Whereas Carill, he actually has a background in boxing, and it showed. Tynan wasn't able to get any takedowns, and when that failed, his go-to was just trying to throw big looping hooks. And with a guy that can actually box and is pretty sound defensively, they're going to get out of the way from that every single time, and they're going to land their own counters, and that is exactly what Carill did. Tynan is young. I think that he can work on some things, but he's going to have to figure it out and get a little bit more polished. You know, guys like Rug, it's going to be hard to just go in and depend only on your wrestling. He's going to have to sharpen up the striking, but he did hang in there. Like I said, Carill is a guy that has a background in boxing, and it was cool to see that he could at least hang in there and compete. Again, he's young, and he will be back. The heavyweight division in one championship is kind of it's kind of thin, you know, so I think he'll be around for a while. Shout out to Carill for getting it done. Moving up the card to probably the most competitive fight of the night, Tanan versus Shamil Gazinoff. Remember how I mentioned that there was a lot of questionable decisions on this one? Well, this was another one of those. Tanan took Shamil Gazinoff down probably like 15 times. I'm not kidding. There wasn't a ton of control time all the time, but there was a decent amount. He was going for his submissions. He almost had some locked in. He was going on a face crank at one time. And he looked pretty good blitzing in, landing his strikes. Like, he looked good striking, too. I thought that he won every single one of the 3 rounds. The judges didn't see it that way. And I may be so wrong for saying this, but if you're a guy from the U.S., or like Europe, fighting one of these Russians or fighting one of these guys from these Asian countries, you better not make it close. And you know, the judges were from all different parts of the world. I think one was from the UK, one was from New Zealand or something. So I don't know. There was just too many questionable decisions for my liking. Again, it was a very, very competitive fight, this one, though, and it was very fun to watch. I mean, at one point, we were in the second round, and I'm like, it's only the second round? It feels like these guys have been going at it forever just because it felt like they were so evenly matched, but ultimately, I felt like Tanan did have the pressure and the takedowns to win the fight. It's a shame he didn't get the win. Moving up the card to the co-main event, and possibly the worst robbery of the night. Rungwe versus Yousef Asawik. I know I'm butchering these names, but Yousef was much taller. He's big for lightweight. He's very tall. I mean, he's got one of these builds like a Jalen Turner almost. He's probably between 6'1 and 6'3. Let's actually look at that right now. Let's see. 6'2". Right. So, and I thought he utilized his length very well. This is a Muay Thai fight, by the way. The kicks, the clinch, the jab. The jab was there. Oh, my God. And he was just touching him with everything. As a matter of fact, if you go on YouTube right now and you go to One Championship's channel to look at the highlights of this fight, you're going to see about a 10 or 15 second clip. And it's because they know that they got this one wrong. Rungwe went out and lost at least 2 rounds, possibly 3 rounds, and stole a decision. It kind of pissed me off. But again, these are the things that happen if you don't seal the deal and put your opponent away and you leave it in the hands of the judges. I'm still not over that one. To be honest, One Friday Fights 118 was better as a whole than One Friday Night Fights 34. But I still enjoyed it, and I'm sure that you guys did too, and that's why y'all are even watching right now. Moving on up to the main event of the evening. Reagan Ursel versus George Jarvis. The Immortal One versus George Jarvis. I had really high hopes for George Jarvis. Reagan Ursel has defended his title like 9 times. That belt is not going anywhere anytime soon. I tell you that much. So this was his 10th title defense last night. George Jarvis, it's showing, leading up to the fight, it's showing him and his kids and talking about him and his father. This kid has been fighting legit since he was 4 years old. So we've got a lifelong fighter, literally a lifelong fighter, that's contending for the belt coming from the UK. And we know these guys from the UK are tough. They are. They're really tough. And I'm sure today George Jarvis is very disappointed because he went out there and he got his ass absolutely starched in the first round. Reagan Ursel was touching him in every way. Pause. But seriously, like the jab was landing. Everything. He couldn't miss. And every time he touched George Jarvis, there was damage. There was a big jab that busted his nose up. Another big punch that busted his cheek up. I mean, it was really bad. And ultimately, he put him away in the first round. Big sequence. And he was about this close from landing a flying knee on George Jarvis as he was going down that would probably still have George Jarvis asleep right now, like at this moment. It's tough to see. You never want to get put away like that. These title shots don't come often. You know, when you've been fighting your whole life, you at least want to make it competitive, and it was anything but competitive. Sucks to be George Jarvis. Shout out to him for getting as far as he has. I hope that he'll be back. Reagan Ursel said that he wants to reclaim his baby. What is his baby? His kickboxing belt. So we'll see what fight One Championship makes next. I think he absolutely deserves it. Look, if you've got a guy that's defended his belt for the 10th consecutive time, you give that guy whatever the hell he wants. So overall, a pretty fun day of fights. We got to see One Friday Fights 118 in the morning and then this at nighttime, or vice versa, depending on where you're at in the world. But I'm going to be honest, some of the decisions that we saw, I really didn't agree with. And I want to hear what you guys thought about some of these fights, specifically the ones that I thought were just straight up a bad ruling. Let me know about it. I'm going to try my best to put out a video for One Friday Fights 118. The UFC fights are about to come on in a few hours, so we'll see what I can do. I'm also getting construction done on my house. So it's just a lot going on, but I'm so glad to be back with you guys making videos again. Let me know what you thought about this card down in the comments.